This next project is the 6-inch cylinder. And I've got two 1-pound balls of clay left, so that's just perfect. The 6-inch cylinder, we can use up to 2 pounds of clay. So here's 2 pounds of clay. I'm just gonna put these together, and they're both thoroughly wedged. So when I get this on the wheel and move it up and down, it'll incorporate very nicely. So there's 2 pounds of clay. Slap it down, just like before. Now, this may be the first time that you're using this amount of clay. So everything is exactly the same, but it's more clay. It might take a little bit more pressure. It is gonna, you know, it's just, it's the next progressive thing. Let's use more clay. So I'm gonna do exactly the same thing centering wise. So I push it into a cone shape. So you can see it's wobbling like crazy, and at this point that's expected. So we bring it down to the base shape. With 2 pounds of clay, it's more like a softball instead of a baseball, but that's fine, it's just more. When you use larger amounts of clay, sometimes you really get out of control right here, and the clay starts to spread out and you can't get it all centered. So at this point, let's discuss that. You want to make sure that your fingers go all the way down to the bat and pull in at the base. And of course, you're still just, most of the work is plowing with your left hand. That right hand comes in to give you something to push against, and you squeeze the clay up into a pyramid or a cone. I think we can go up even more with that. We'll dig deep and really bring that clay up high this time. So we're getting close to 7 or 8 inches. So everything's the same, it's just more clay. So we're going back down. Speed it up just a little bit. It's the nice thing about the variable speed wheels, you can fine tune that speed really quickly. So we'll go ahead and do a third up and down. And even with this amount of clay, usually 3 times up and down is plenty. That looks real good. It's a little bit, a little wobbly thing right at the base there, but I'm not going to worry about that. We'll call this essentially perfect. Okay, so now we're going to open. Nothing different here, it's just a bigger lump of clay. So we make sure we've got enough water to keep us pushing down uninterrupted. Sometimes when you get deeper in a big mass of clay like this, it really does start to catch on your fingers. I just got a little bit of a glob of clay that came out. But you're basically doing the same thing. I'm going down to about 1/4 inch from the bottom, and then note this move. I'm just going to slide. You can see that both of my fingers are moving to this direction kind of slowly, and I'm just stretching out the bottom by tugging both of my hands that direction. I've got about 3 inches in there. This is a shape that I'm going for height, so I am going to go ahead and pull this back in, and see already I've got better part of 4 inches. So getting 6 inches with 2 pounds of clay actually is not very difficult to do, but you know, part of this is getting familiar with a larger lump of clay on the wheel. So it's just a little bit more material to keep track of. So now you can't see this from the camera angle, but this is maybe 3/4 of an inch. So that means that I can make this 3 times as high as what it is, because I want to end up with roughly 1/4 inch wall thickness. I can probably easily get more than 6 inches out of this. So now my pull, exactly the same thing. I'm again using my longest finger on my left hand down into the corner, a damp sponge on the outside along with my index finger. You make that little groove, and then both hands come up as a unit. The first pull is quite often not so much of a pull as it is just kind of straightening up the clay. We did get some height on that, but it wasn't real extreme. We're still thicker than a 1/2 inch for the wall thickness, so we've got a long ways to go. So we just keep going. We'll do a second pull all the way down to the bottom, dig deep, and then we bring both hands up. So now this is just 2 pulls. I think we might have close to 6 inches, maybe a little bit shy, but we're gonna do at least 3 pulls anyway. But let's see what we've got out of 2 pulls. We have a little bit less than 5 inches. So we've got quite a ways to go. Keep the wheel head clean. And I'm gonna go ahead and sop up that bottom. Now with this amount of clay, there's actually quite a bit more width to the pot, so I can almost get my whole hand in there if I need to. I can still, yeah, I will. I'll just use my whole hand and we'll go right down in there, dig deep for a 3rd pull. Now you want to go straight up as possible. If you start to go at any kind of an angle, you're just going to cheat yourself on trying to get maximum height. Now, porcelain is a little bit harder to get to go high, but we'll see what we've got so far. So that's 5.5 inches. We're not there yet. So I fully expect that students trying this for the first time may have to try it 10 times. You may not succeed a number of times because it's not that easy. So, but nevertheless, we're going to go in for 4th pull. And so again, kind of dig deep. Notice that the orientation of my index finger is more or less straight up and down. So the broad part of my finger is pushing on the clay. And that's important because if you push with your fingertips, you can push right through if you're not careful. Okay, I think we might have gotten to 6 inches on that, but let's just check it. Ruler's upside down. Okay, so that is actually a little bit short. So I'm going to be a real stickler for this. You've got to get all the way to 6 inches. By the way, this exercise will be a lot easier with stoneware, and I'm only doing this with porcelain because I had everything cleaned up and I was too lazy to switch over to stoneware. So in any case, let me get enough water on this so that I can really pull it up this time. Now I can feel that these walls are getting thin. That is a feeling that is really dramatic with porcelain even more. But you will feel the same thing with stoneware. The walls kind of feel floppy, and that just means you've got to be extra careful. So I now have 6 inches and 1/8. That completes the assignment. One of the things that I want to say about this assignment is that many people at this stage, or a stage very similar to this, might be only at 5 inches. And you'll notice that the top of this flares out quite a bit. I've got about 3.5 inches at the base. The minimum requirement is that I need the diameter of this cylinder to be 3 inches. So right now it's probably closer to 5. It's 4.5 inches. So I'm going to demonstrate for the first time a process called collaring, and I'm going to use 6 points on my fingers. So it's my thumb tips, it's the knuckles on my middle fingers, and it's my index fingers. So I'm going to use those 6 points, and I'm going to go down to a point on the pot where the thickness is what I want to collar down to. And I am just raising both hands at a very slow pace, and I'm pushing the clay inward as evenly as possible. And sometimes it'll start to do weird things like fold over on you, but if you just go slow, you should be all right. Now, when you get to the very top, sometimes that wants to fold over on you. If you see it start to fold, just kind of pull back a little bit. But it's pretty important with this to get all the way to the top. Now, I can actually see a little bit of folding taking place right there, but for this assignment, that's of no consequence whatsoever. Once you've got a straight up cylinder, that's going to be a little bit taller than what you just had. So now that is, well, it only got me 1/4 of an inch. But if you're looking for a little bit of extra height when you've got a cylinder that's close, that's what you want to do, collar it in. And so my width on this is still almost 4 inches. So I can collar this whole thing again if I wanted to, you know, if I really need to get more height. So let's just go ahead and do that. Going pretty well. When I get to the very top, it might want to fold in on me, so I'm just being very careful with this. Folding a little bit, but look at that. I've got it collared in. I've got a little bit of a waste there, which was, I suppose, unintentional, but I can straighten that up. Not required, by the way, but you can straighten that back up. And now that collaring exercise got us a little bit more, and by golly, there's 7 inches. So I've got a 7-inch tall by still 3 3/4 wide cylinder. The task is to get 6 inches tall and 3 inches minimum width out of 2 pounds of clay. So there you can see that it can be done. We don't have to do all those fancy trimming things with this because the assignment is just to make a cylinder. Now, what would you do with a cylinder like this? Well, you could, most likely, you would make a vase or a pitcher out of it. So I'm not going to take this all the way to the finish, but let's say we wanted to, you know, bring a new tool to the party. So, well, if I'm going to do that, let me do the pre-trim. So we'll go ahead and do this pre-trim. Cut that off with my needle tool. This will just make the final shape look more correct. Now I'm going to use a rib on this. I'm not going to explain a lot about what I'm doing because I'll do that in more detail when I make the actual picture video. But just to demonstrate what you can do with a taller cylinder, you know, stretching is a really great thing to do with clay because when you're pulling, a lot of times the walls will get kind of weak on you because you're adding water and you're trying to move the clay up. But when you're stretching, you're actually drying the clay out. So it really will cooperate with a lot of kind of dramatic movements. See, I can get a nice belly on that, and you know, we could do a kind of a big honey pot shape with this, and then you could maybe imagine we're not very far away from a pitcher. I've got a kind of a funny spot right here where it was folding a little bit, and I can just go right there and put a spout on and kind of make that irregularity go away. Now, if this was really going to be a pitcher, I would want to make a handle for it, and that's going to come in future videos. So that is the 6-inch tall cylinder, and thank you for watching.